Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout 3, where today we're going to be taking a look at multiple shanking implements of Fallout 3. These aren't technically all the knives, but they're most of the knives because we've already talked about the regular knife and all of its variants. So in this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Switchblade, its unique variant, and all of the variants of the combat knife, of which we have quite a few. So let's begin with the Switchblade, since the Switchblade is a blade that you can get pretty early on. This is a blade that raiders sometimes carry around with them. It's not very expensive to buy these. It's not going to be difficult to fix these up if you do find them. You can also just find them in random crates laying around the wasteland. They are actually a pretty common weapon. The Switchblade for stats has 5 damage per hit, which is not very high, but it's okay because this at least attacks fairly fast at 15 DPS, so fairly quick hits with the Switchblade, as you would kind of hope. This one has a 2x crit modifier, so it's actually pretty likely to hit crits, which is good. And it actually does more crit damage than it has regular damage at 9, which is decent for an early game weapon. This one also costs very little action points at only 18, so in a VATS build, it's not too bad for the early game either. The Switchblade also only weighs 1 weight, so they are incredibly lightweight. If you see them around, you might as well grab them because at least you could sell them. And the Switchblade has decent item HP at 400 hits before it breaks. That's not too bad. This still isn't incredible by melee weapon standards or really by any weapon standards, but it's not terrible, and if you find Switchblades early on, they can prove to be kind of reasonably good. For the general pros of the Switchblade and most of these blades, they do have pretty good DPS, at least in the early game. They will fall off a bit later, sometimes early on if you're comparing them to other builds like an unarmed build, where Brass Knuckles and Spike Knuckles will beat these out pretty fast. They are lightweight though, and they have pretty good item HP. Fighting them in the early game and keeping a Switchblade fixed up is good. The Switchblade is also technically one of 2 weapons that you can actually sneak into the pit. It depends on which you want, either this or a 32 pistol. The main problem with taking a Switchblade into there is that you pretty much immediately get an auto axe, which is going to be a much better melee weapon if you want to go with that. So the 32 pistol I think is a little bit of a better option, not an amazing upgrade over it, but a little bit of a better option than this. Even though I would say that this one is probably overall better than the 32 in the grand scale of Fallout 3. The major con to the Switchblade and some of these other blades that are coming up is that they do kind of fall off compared to other melee weapons. You're really not going to want to have a Switchblade into the later game, or even potentially a normal combat knife into the later game. You're probably going to swap these off for some other weapons. Something like the Vampire's Edge comes to mind, with it also only weighing 1, but having way longer reach, much higher damage, and much higher DPS than pretty much any of these weapons. So for an overall rating for the Switchblade, I'm going to have to put this one into low C tier. It's an okay weapon in the early game, but it does fall off later. The unique version of the Switchblade you actually get to see right at the very start of the game, as this is Butch's unique weapon, which you can have him as a companion, or if he dies, or if you just want to take this off of him, you can use the Switchblade yourself. So Butch's Toothpick is a little bit different in terms of stats. This one does 10 damage per hit, which is actually pretty decent, although you can't get Butch as a companion right away if you want to be having him with this, because you will need to clear out Vault 101 and get about halfway through the main story before you can go back to Vault 101, in which case then you can have Butch join you there. This one has 30 DPS, so same swing speed as the regular Switchblade. It's pretty decent. This one has a 2.5 times crit modifier, so it's even more likely to hit crits, which is good. This one does 13 crit damage, which is more than its base damage. This one costs still 18 action points. Weirdly enough, this Switchblade weighs a lot more at 5 weight. I don't know why that is, but this one weighs 5 times the amount of a regular Switchblade. This one also has less item HP too. This only has 300 hits before it breaks. So Butch's Toothpick you're going to have to fix up more often. Not that that's super difficult, because Switchblades are fairly common, so fixing them up isn't going to be that big of a deal. This one is an upgrade over the regular Switchblade, but it's still not really a melee weapon I go for, just because you can go for some of the combat knives and they're a bit better. So Butch's Toothpick I'd also put up into C tier. It's better than the regular one, but not by too much. Now we move on to the 4 variations of combat knives we have. So first up, we have the regular combat knife. The regular combat knife you're probably going to be finding anywhere from the early to mid game and definitely into the late game. Mercenaries tend to carry this around, as well as sometimes raiders carry combat knives around. For the damage, this one does 7 damage per hit, which is okay, 21 damage per second. This attacks just as fast as the Switchblade and just has higher stats than it. This one has a 3 times crit modifier, so it's very likely to hit crits. Does 13 crit damage, which is better than its regular damage. This one only costs 17 action points, so it's one of the best melee or unarmed weapons to be using in VATS. The combat knife only weighs 1, and the combat knife has a ton of item HP at 1286. So you have a lot of hits to go through before this one breaks. The combat knife is actually a pretty solid melee weapon in the game. It's nothing way crazy, and you're probably going to swap it out for some other weapons later on. But if you get a combat knife early on or into the mid game, go ahead and use it. I would put this one up into B tier. I think it's actually pretty decent. There is 3 unique versions of the combat knife as well. First one is called Octum's Razer, and this one you're going to have to get from the Outcasts. This one does 10 damage per hit, 30 damage per second. This attacks at the same speed. They all attack at the same speed. This one has a 3 times crit modifier, which is still very good, does 13 crit damage, costs 17 action points, weighs 1 weight, and this one only has 1200 hits in it rather than the 1286 that the regular combat knife has. So this one does break slightly faster. You're probably not going to notice it. This one is just higher statted than a regular combat knife. You do kind of have to go out of your way to get it, and I don't know if it's really worth it because this isn't a massive increase. You just get 3 more base damage, so your DPS is a little bit higher. It is an upgrade though, so I'm going to also put this one into B tier, higher up into B tier, but still a B tier weapon if you want to take it. Then the next combat knife is called Stab Happy. Stab Happy, you kind of get out in the middle of nowhere. You get it off of some raiders that are in an unmarked location, and Stab Happy is probably the best of these weapons we're going to talk about today, because this one has very similar stats to the previous knife, but a little bit better. So this one also does 10 damage per hit, which is pretty good, 30 damage per second. This one has a massive 4 times crit modifier though, which I think is the highest of any of the melee weapons, so you are very likely to hit crits with this. This one does 15 crit damage, the highest out of these weapons. This one also costs 17 action points, weighs 1, and has 1200 hits into it. This one's pretty easy if you just want to rush it, and it's a pretty decent melee weapon. It's still going to get outshined by other melee weapons, like the Vampire's Edge I think would be better than this, Shish Kebab's going to be better than this, Katana, Jigwee's Shock Sword too if you want to take any of those. Those are all kind of better than this weapon, but if you want to rush this and just use it right at the very start, you can absolutely do that, and it's pretty good. So I'd put Stab Happy actually up into A tier. I think it's a pretty good weapon overall. And then our very last version of the combat knife is the Trench Knife, which the Trench Knife you get as a reward for completing Operation Anchorage. And that's actually the only way you can get it. You can't actually cheat out a Trench Knife from Operation Anchorage, I don't believe, because you can get a Power Fist, but not this. You get this at the very start of Operation Anchorage, and then once you go to the second area, it gets taken away as well as all the other gear that you got. So you can't really cheat this one out and have an infinite health Trench Knife, although you really wouldn't need to do that because you can fix these up with regular combat knives. So it's not even a unique weapon that has no other variants that you can actually fix it up with. So the Trench Knife is basically the same as the regular combat knife. In terms of stats, it's exactly the same. It does 7 damage, 21 damage per second, has a 3 times crit modifier, does 13 crit damage, costs 17 action points, weighs 1, and has 1286 hits in it before it breaks. The only difference between this and a regular combat knife is the way that they look. The Trench Knife looks a little bit cooler because it's got like the knuckle guard and it's got some spikes on it and stuff. I do like that look a bit more than the regular combat knife, but it's really weird that they didn't give it any additional stats. It's just the same as the regular combat knife. So I'm going to put it into B tier. It's, I mean, I would use it over a combat knife because it looks cooler, but there's not really much to say about it. It's the same as the combat knife, just it's DLC exclusive, which is weird. Either way, tell me your thoughts on all these shanking implements, all these stabbing implements. Which one's your favorite? I like Stab Happy the best myself. Hope you enjoyed this, because next time we're going to be taking a look at the flamethrowers.